I still remember the first time I met Alex. It was a rainy Tuesday afternoon, the kind of day you just want to stay in bed. But there I was, standing under a broken umbrella at the bus stop, soaked and frustrated, when he appeared. Alex offered me his umbrella with the most charming smile I had ever seen. We ended up sharing that umbrella all the way to the coffee shop down the street. We talked for hours over 2 steaming cups of coffee. It was as if we had known each other forever. He was warm, funny, and attentive. Back then, Alex was just a junior architect, struggling to pay off student loans. I was working 2 part-time jobs and dreaming of opening my own little bakery one day. Our life wasn't glamorous, but it was ours. We learned to be creative with date nights, cheap wine, homemade dinners, movie marathons on an old laptop. We supported each other through every challenge, when his projects fell through, when I was exhausted from working double shifts. We laughed a lot. We dreamed about the future, buying a small house, maybe starting a family, traveling together once we had saved up. What I loved most about Alex was how present he was. Even when stressed, he listened, he cared, he showed up. I felt seen, valued, and loved. We were partners, equals, 2 people building a life together, brick by brick. Then came the call that changed everything. It was a cold December evening, right before Christmas. We were decorating our tiny apartment with dollar store lights when Alex's phone rang. I remember the look on his face, confusion, shock, and then this strange, almost dazed smile. His great uncle, whom he barely knew, had passed away and left him a fortune. Millions. At first, nothing changed. We toasted with cheap champagne and laughed at the absurdity of it all. Alex swore we'd stay the same. Money won't change us, he said, pulling me into his arms. I wanted to believe him. But as the days passed, I started to see small cracks. Calls from lawyers and financial advisors. Fancy packages arriving at the door. He started staying out late, meeting important people, investors, old friends who had reappeared. The man who once clung to me on the couch now barely had time for dinner. I told myself it was just a phase, that he needed time to adjust. But deep inside, a quiet fear began to grow. The man I fell in love with was slipping away. And I couldn't shake the feeling that soon, I might no longer exist in his world. I wish I could say the night Alex got the inheritance call was just another normal evening. But something in his eyes shifted that day, something I couldn't quite name. For the first few days, Alex was overwhelmed. Meetings with lawyers, paperwork, endless phone calls. The money was real, and it was massive. Overnight, we went from scraping by to sitting on millions. Alex assured me, over and over, that nothing between us would change. He said the money was just a tool, something we could use to make our dreams come true. At first, I believed him. We talked about paying off his loans, setting aside money for my bakery, maybe even buying a small house. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, scribbling plans on a napkin while Alex smiled at me like the happiest man alive. But as the weeks passed, I began to notice things. Alex, once simple and easygoing, became distracted. He bought an expensive watch, saying it was just a little treat. Then came the car, a sleek, black sports car that turned heads wherever we went. Suddenly, he was going to dinners I wasn't invited to, rubbing shoulders with people whose names I didn't even recognize. When I asked about these meetings, he would wave it off. "Babe, it's just networking," he'd say. "You wouldn't be interested." I tried to be understanding. I told myself this was temporary, that he was just adjusting to a new world. But deep down, I felt the shift. He started coming home later. Our quiet dinners turned into hurried takeout meals eaten alone on the couch. Our weekends, once filled with long walks and cozy movie nights, were now open-ended because Alex was busy or had plans. I remember the first time he missed an important moment. It was the night of my bakery pitch event, something we had dreamed of for years. He promised he would be there, that he wouldn't miss it for the world. But when I looked out into the audience, his seat was empty. He texted me hours later, "Sorry, caught up with some investors." "Proud of you, though." I told myself not to cry. At night, lying next to him, I would listen to the sound of his breathing and wonder where my Alex had gone. He was right there beside me, yet miles away. Sometimes I would reach out, gently placing my hand on his arm, hoping he'd turn toward me, give me that familiar smile. But more often than not, he was already asleep, lost in dreams I was no longer part of. The inheritance had cracked open a door to a life I didn't recognize. And as Alex stepped through it, I was left standing in the doorway wondering if he'd ever turn around. It's strange how someone can change right before your eyes, yet you still try to convince yourself they're the same. In the weeks after the bakery event, Alex's transformation became undeniable. He had always been kind, attentive, and funny, the man who remembered my favorite tea, who left little notes in my lunch, who held my hand in public just because. But now, it was as if a switch had flipped. Alex was no longer the man who laughed with me at midnight or brought home my favorite pastries. He was now the man with a calendar full of meetings, the man who scrolled through his phone during dinner, the man who cancelled plans last minute because something important came up. He dressed differently, too. Gone were his cozy sweaters and jeans. Now, it was designer suits, leather shoes, and a watch that probably cost more than our rent. I didn't recognize the cologne he wore, a sharp, expensive scent that seemed to announce his presence before he even entered the room. One evening, I confronted him. "Alex," I said, my voice trembling, "are we okay?" He looked up from his phone, blinking like I had pulled him out of another world. "What do you mean?" "You're different." "We're different." He let out a soft laugh, brushing it off. "Come on, babe. Things are just hectic right now. We're good. I promise." But the words felt hollow. A few days later, I decided to surprise him at one of his networking events. I told myself I just wanted to see him in his element, to support him. But deep down, I needed to know if the Alex I loved was still in there. The room was filled with polished, glamorous people, all sharp suits and sparkling dresses, sipping champagne under chandeliers. When Alex saw me, something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, annoyance, I wasn't sure. "Hey, you didn't tell me you were coming," he said, kissing my cheek, already glancing back at his group. "I missed you," I whispered. For the rest of the night, I watched him from across the room. He laughed at jokes I didn't understand, shook hands with people I'd never met, and hardly looked my way. On the ride home, silence stretched between us like an ocean. "Did you have fun?" he asked absently, scrolling through his phone. "I don't know," I replied softly. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering when Alex had become a stranger. I wanted to shake him, to remind him of the life we had built together. But something told me that the man lying next to me was already slipping away, and I didn't know how to pull him back. Money hadn't just changed Alex's lifestyle. It was changing his heart. Weeks passed, and the distance between us grew, even when we sat in the same room. I began to wonder if Alex noticed the tension at all, or if he had simply decided to ignore it. One evening, I planned something small, something that used to make us happy. I cooked his favorite dinner, lit some candles, and played the playlist we made when we first moved in together. For a moment, I felt hopeful. When Alex walked through the door, I saw the exhaustion on his face, the way he loosened his tie and barely glanced at the table. "What's all this?" he asked, his voice flat. "Just us," I said with a nervous smile. "I thought we could have a quiet night together." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I have a call in 20 minutes. I felt the sting, sharp and sudden. Can't it wait just one dinner?" His eyes flicked toward his phone. "It's important, Emily. I can't just drop everything." And there it was, the moment when all the small hurts finally overflowed. I pushed back my chair and stood. "Alex, do you even see me anymore? Do you even care about this relationship?" He looked up, startled. "What are you talking about? Of course I care. Then why do I feel invisible?" My voice cracked, the tears I'd been holding back rushing forward. "You've changed, Alex. Ever since the money came, ever since the inheritance, it's like I am no longer part of your life." He rubbed his temples, frustration flashing across his face. "Why can't you just be happy for me? Why does everything have to be about you feeling left out?" I took a shaky breath. "Because I am left out." The room went still. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, Alex exhaled and really looked at me for the first time in weeks. "I didn't mean to push you away," he said quietly. I'm under a lot of pressure." I shook my head, my heart breaking. "That's the thing, Alex. I didn't fall in love with your success or your money. I fell in love with you. But I don't know if you're still in there." He reached for my hand, but for the first time, I pulled away. That night, I slept on the couch. I lay in the dark, listening to the soft hum of the city outside our window, wondering if love could survive when one person was already halfway out the door. And for the first time, I began to question if I was holding onto a memory or if I was brave enough to let go. The next morning, the apartment was quiet, too quiet. I lay on the couch, still in last night's clothes, staring at the ceiling. My chest felt heavy, like a weight I couldn't shake. In the kitchen, I heard Alex making coffee. No words, no apology, just the familiar clinking of mugs. It struck me how strange it was how we could be so close in space, yet miles apart in every other way. I sat up slowly, rubbing my eyes. Alex appeared in the doorway, coffee in hand. He hesitated before speaking. "You should sleep in the bed tonight," he murmured. I gave a weak smile. "We both know it's not just about where I sleep." He lowered his gaze, and the silence between us stretched on like a wall. For the next few days, we fell into an awkward rhythm. We spoke when necessary. "Did you feed the cat? Are you home for dinner?" But the laughter, the warmth, the effortless closeness we once had, it was gone. One evening, I sat alone in the park, watching couples walk by, their laughter drifting through the air like music. I thought about us the way we used to be, the way Alex's eyes lit up when he talked about his dreams, the way he used to hold my hand as if he'd never let go. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Alex, late at the office. "Don't wait up." I stared at the screen, my chest tightening. That night, I made a choice. When Alex came home, I was waiting in the living room, a small bag by my side. His eyes widened when he saw it. "Emily, what's going on?" I took a breath, steadying my voice. "I need space, Alex. I need time to figure out if we're still us." Panic flickered across his face. Wait, you're leaving? Tears welled in my eyes, but I forced myself to stay calm. I'm not giving up on you, but I can't keep living in this in-between place. I need to know if we can find our way back to each other, or if we've already lost our way. He ran a hand through his hair, his voice breaking. Emily, please. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I reached out, brushing his cheek softly. Neither did I. And then, with one last look, one filled with love, pain, and hope, I walked out the door. As the cold night air wrapped around me, I felt both broken and free. For the first time in months, I was doing something not out of fear of losing him, but out of love for myself. I didn't know what would happen next. But for the first time, I was ready to find out. The days away from Alex were both healing and haunting. I stayed at my sister's apartment, surrounded by the familiar smell of lavender and the soft murmur of the city below. At night, I lay awake, wondering if Alex was thinking of me, if he missed the way we used to talk late into the night, laugh over silly inside jokes, or dream of the future we once wanted so badly. Each morning, I waited for a text, a call, anything. But the silence was deafening. One afternoon, my sister handed me a cup of tea and sat beside me on the couch. You can't wait forever, Emily, she said gently. You have to decide what you want, not what you're afraid to lose. Her words stayed with me. A week later, my phone buzzed. It was Alex. Can we talk? My heart pounded as I made my way back to our apartment. When I opened the door, I barely recognized the man in front of me. Alex looked exhausted, his hair messy, dark circles under his eyes. He gave me a nervous smile. Hey, he whispered. Hey, I whispered back. We sat on the couch, the same place where so much had unraveled. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Alex took a deep breath. I've been a fool, he said, his voice cracking. I let the money change me. I thought, if I worked harder, impressed the right people, maybe you'd be proud of me. Maybe I'd finally be enough. My throat tightened. Alex, you were always enough. I never wanted your money. I just wanted you. His eyes filled with tears, and for the first time in months, I saw the man I had fallen in love with, vulnerable, real, human. I was so scared of failing you, he said softly. I didn't realize I was losing you in the process. I reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. It's not too late, Alex. But we can't go back to who we were. We have to rebuild together. We sat there, holding each other's hands, the quiet between us no longer heavy, but healing. That night, we talked for hours about dreams, fears, mistakes, and forgiveness. For the first time, we were honest with each other, not as the perfect couple we once pretended to be, but as two imperfect people trying to find their way back. Over the weeks that followed, Alex pulled back from his work. We cooked dinner together, went on long walks, and laughed like we hadn't in ages. It wasn't perfect, there were awkward moments, hard conversations, and moments of doubt, but we were trying. And in the end, love isn't about perfection. It's about choosing each other, again and again, even when it's hard. As I lay beside Alex one night, his arms wrapped around me, I realized something: we had both been lost. But sometimes, you have to lose each other a little to find your way back home.